study, where today we're going to look at the coast of Cornwall, namely the Atlantic coast. I thought it might be fun to do a little walk as well. So we'll have a look at this map of Cornwall and Devon, and then we'll walk down the cliffs on the Atlantic coast of Cornwall to the sea, where we will look into some mysterious caves and read a poem by John Betjeman. We've done something similar before with Brittany, and Cornwall and Devon are kind of Brittany's partners across the channel. So let's start in Devon. Here, the motorway goes to Exeter, where it ends. It'll be the M5. And from Exeter, we can go through to Torquay, Paynton, Dartmouth, Salcombe, Plymouth. There's the Dartmoor, and north the Exmoor near Somerset. We've been to Somerset before. There's Bath, Glastonbury, and Wells Cathedral. Here's the north coast, where the Bristol Channel comes out from the Severn River. See if I can move the map down there, and that is Wales. We've been there to cross the bridge to the Roman towns of Iscasilorum and Caerwent. And here we have the Celtic Sea, or the Atlantic Ocean. That's where they meet and come together. Barnstaple, or Bedford Bay, island of Lundy. And there's Devon there. And we have Launceston and another moor, the Bodmin Moor. And there's the town of Bodmin. And around past Plymouth, St Austell, and Falmouth. So some very good shipping ports along the south coast there. These rivers make very nice, natural, protected harbors, and they're very beautiful. The geology of this peninsula region is such that the coasts along the south and west are Cliffs, those along the channel having stone beaches and rather rough sand, and along the Celtic Sea and Atlantic coast, Land's End, there are more sandy coves and beaches. The entire coastline of cliffs makes for erosion in the form of sea caves and tidal pools, which proved something that smugglers would use, or pirates. This area is also, like Brittany, peppered with prehistoric remains. There are numerous stone circles, hill forts, Iron Age and Stone Age villages, as well as burial mounds. So we know there was a lot of activity here in prehistoric times, as well as long before there was an English Channel, when it was just a river flowing out to the ocean. There was a vast grassland, and along the south coast you can find the Jurassic coast, where many of these fossils have been found, of these prehistoric animals that used to roam. It can be a very desolate landscape, but also a very beautiful, rich, forested place that fuels the imagination. There's a predominance of slate and granite exposed on these coasts, which gives them their beautiful cliffs. I've been using this wooden pen that you might remember because it makes some very nice sounds. This is just a drawing pen from Tachikawa. I like the plastic lid because it makes nice sounds as well. Got a stainless steel nib. And a little grippy, but I particularly like the wood. I like the wood sounds on the paper and on the wood. interesting places listed or shown. And here are the symbols in the key. These are for the roads, but we're going to look for something interesting here. Ferries, earthworks, English heritage, castle open to the public, castle and garden open to public, keeping in mind that castle in these areas doesn't necessarily mean a grand palace. It can mean something as simple as a mound that used to house a city. You might remember here in the study we've also been to Uffington Castle, which was an Iron Age hill fort. So when you see these castle symbols, something worth exploring. It could be from any time. Forest walks, fortress or hill fort, garden, and here a hill figure. Remember we saw the white horse carved into the side of the hill at Uffington. Historic buildings with gardens. Then we have the more modern tourist attractions, viewpoints, spot heights. So you can see there's lots of climbing up and down when you do the coastal path. And look at that one, prehistoric monument and natural attraction. We'll be looking for those. Looks like the sun's coming in on our map. It's going to be a beautiful day. Look at that. Piper's Standing Stones, Tregriffin, and Merry Maidens. Wild Bird Hospital. I'm just looking at all of these prehistoric standing stone sites. They're just everywhere on this peninsula. And truly you can drive along on what might seem like large roads, but they get smaller and smaller, and you will find Man Castle. Look at that, there's a hill fort, or some standing stones, or an old village that's all earthworks, a prehistoric village. Here we have Blind Fiddler Standing Stone, Carnuni Ancient Village, Cairbrand. You can see the Celtic language, Cairn area, Ballawall Barrow, burial mound there. Chuncoit and Chuncastle and Lanyon Coit. Coit is another term for these standing stones. And the Care, another term for village, ancient village. And more Cornish, Lanyon Coit, Men Antall, Menskirfa, Mulvacoit. I'm sure my pronunciation is not quite accurate. I'm going to do my best here, because I find the Cornish and Breton languages absolutely fascinating, although one doesn't hear them spoken very often. such an ancient village here. Zinner quite, Sparris quite. Look at that, Gernard's head, and not the Gernard from the Solent, but one on a point, so a hill fort, on a rugged point of land on the coast. What a wonderful evocation of the imagination that would be to visit. And another one near Porthmoor is Boscran Castle, Carngalver mine engine houses. So when you have Carn again, ancient village there, Menskirfa. Look at all of these everywhere. And on the south coast, all of these coves, all the way down. This Mounts Bay, facing southwest. And the Balcribo Downs. Lots of tin mines here as well. Since prehistoric times, metals have been mined in Cornwall. And more recently in human history, tin. And here we cross east. There's Falmouth. Look at all the river inlets. Look at that. St. Just Pool. Look at that. And the Truro River. And Carn River. And more Downs area with all of these tiny little headlands jutting out and what they call the Lizard Peninsula and Lizard Point. If you are a fan of Hornblower, you will have heard or read them say to weather the lizard, meaning leaving Lizard Point to the windward or to the windward side. Giants quite small, standing stone. Look at these inlets, and they're usually very steep hillsides that go down to the rivers, making beautiful views all along the rivers. And there's Truro to the north there. Yes, you can see the rest of the map there. Redruth. That's the rest of the river there. And Truro. Just there. Some round houses. Beacon, Cairn Beach, and Tottenham Point. And now we're going up the coast a bit. From St. Ives up the west coast, all of these cliffs and headlands and beautiful, beautiful beaches. Portreath, Newquay, and Bedworth and Steps. It's this coast where we shall take a walk down the cliffs. Look at all of these beautiful headlands and inlets on this coastline. There's St. Austell, Bowie, and a town called Barcelona. This is where the part of Cornwall from coast to coast widens. Lost with you. This is a place name that to me is very similar to the Breton language. You can see the relation. It's an English heritage site there and here. Burney Common and Elmentor. It's a Saxon word. And look, there's more. It's a stone circle there. You can find more of these prehistoric monuments, but also you can see these steam railways, the Bodmin and Wentford Railway, animal sanctuaries, another castle, Antinos, 9 made in stone row, which we saw before, Pot and Coit. So lots of zoos and animal sanctuaries, birds, also recreational sites, and look at that, more steam trains. This is an absolutely gorgeous area for steam train rides and rail, because there are all these little inlets and river valleys along which the rails go that make for a beautifully scenic route. And we're coming west and east to Plymouth along the south coast. This is about this river here where Cornwall ends and Devonshire begins. And here along this river, Tamar, that forms the border, you can see there are several prehistoric sites as well as modern recreational things to do, things to see. Monkey Sanctuary there, St. George's Island Marine, Porterinkle, Craft Hole, Trudeland. Look, there's more. Look at all of these prehistoric barrows and stone circles there. Let's see if I can bring the map down. There we go. You can see all of those ones there. Look at that. Some up there as well. And more here. Castle Winch, hinges and barrows and stone circles. And there's the sun coming in again, promising a beautiful day today. What have you got planned for today? Or maybe tomorrow? Something nice. And now there's west, Salcombe, and northeast. See if I can rearrange this to get the entire map in the frame for you. It's a little bit better, but we have the sun, but it will go behind a cloud coast goes north here with all of these inlets. You can see it's very built up here, and then the Dartmoor, beautiful protected green area with viewpoints. Lots of beautiful walking trails along the coast and in the forest and along the rivers of Dorset. And once again, north along the west coast, and we're joined by a pigeon outside. But I did want to show you Dentage Castle. This is an old point of land that is separated because the land bridge fell in, so it's almost an island. A medieval castle was built on this headland by Richard, who I think was actually a cousin of Richard Lionheart and King John, Richard of Cornwall. But the castle fell into ruin, and it's also got some caves underneath. A beautiful viewpoint there, and lots of fun to poke around the castle ruins. Very evocative place. And then along this beach, we've got King Arthur's great halls. There's a lot, of course, of Arthurian legend in Cornwall, as well as Brittany. And there comes the sun again. Wants to interrupt the light for our filming. And if you can see the Bodmin Moor and more, lots and lots of stone circles and standing stones, and a place called Brown Willie. So there's a lot of local folklore as well. And here we see the moors again as we go east from Launceston across the Dartmoor to Exeter and Exmouth and the river Exe. Let's go together and climb down one of the cliffs on the west coast of Cornwall together, and I will read you a poem about the Cornish Cliffs. Here's our view from near the top of this beautiful cliff. You can see all of Cornwall, including the south, is exposed to the prevailing southwesterly winds coming from the Atlantic Ocean, meaning that this coastline, as you can see as we walk down, has exposed a lot of the rocks that are very resistant to wind erosion. Look at these beautiful, impressive granite cliffs. And the slate, geologically, is called Devonian slate, that we find a little bit inland and farther east. The Lizard Peninsula on the south that we saw on the map is made up of sandstone and shale. And that one is part part of a section of the oceanic crust that was lifted up during a previous geological period. This coast we're going down here is the north and west coast, more exposed to the wind and very wild. Cornwall's highest sheer drop cliff is High Cliff, with a sheer drop of 735 feet, or 224 meters. You see here where we're crossing the beach, there's a small stream that has played its part in forming this little cove. And we're going to cross over the stream and go into the caves, have a look around. The tide is now turned and has started to come in, which means we can't go around the headland to those other little caves. So I've unfortunately left it a bit too long to come down here, but we will be able to come into these ones and have a look. Looking up at the cliffs, it's quite fascinating. These many caves and the wild Cornish countryside has evoked many legends over time. Old Celtic legends have witches or fairies living in the caves. And later on, stories about pirates and smugglers. And in the 19th century, all kinds of tales of spirits, kidnapping, love stories, even the old medieval story based on Celtic folklore of Tristan and Isolde or Ise had a cave in it. You can see all of the tiny little cubby holes, and imagine mysterious fairies having celebrations or smugglers hiding their loot in here, or perhaps pirates putting someone in there who they didn't like for nefarious purposes or for interesting purposes. These caves are certainly an interesting place to plod around. Interestingly enough, Sir John Betjeman was a poet who was born on the 28th of August 1906. So, almost contemporary with our Hammerman poet, who we talked about earlier this summer. And John Betjeman's father had been a cabinet maker, and his family was more or less working class. However, like our Hammerman poet, he had a gift for telling stories and putting them into beautiful language. And he lived, interestingly enough, around Uffington, where our Hammerman poet Alfred Williams spent most of his life as well. So there must have been something inspirational there. Here I'll read Betjeman's poem, Cornish Cliffs. Those moments, tasted once and never done, of long surf breaking in the midday sun, a far-off blowhole booming like a gun, the seagulls playing in circle out of sight, below this thirsty, thrift-encrusted height, the veined sea campion buds burst into white, and gorse turns tawny orange, seen beside pale drifts of primroses cascading wide, to where the slate falls sheer into the tide. More than in gardened Surrey, nature spills a wealth of heather, kidney vetch and squills over these long defended Cornish hills. A gun emplacement of the latest war looks older than the hill fort built before Saxon or Norman headed for the shore. And in the shadowless, unclouded glare, deep blue above us fades to whiteness where a misty sea line meets the wash of air. Nut smell of gorse and honey smell of ling, waft out to see the freshness of the spring. On sunny shallows, green and whispering, the whiteness which the lark song gives the sky shrinks at the clang of seabirds sailing by, whose notes are tuned to days when seas are high. From today's calm, the lanes enclosing green leads inland to a usual Cornish scene, slate cottages with sycamore between, small fields and telemasts and wires and poles, with, as the everlasting ocean rolls, 2 chapels built for 100 souls. So my friend, thank you for spending this time with me. It's early morning here in the study, and the sun has been shining its rays on our maps, making the viewing a little bit difficult sometimes, but promising a beautiful day. I wish you, wherever and whenever you are, a beautiful day, night, afternoon,